everybody, and welcome to Vinyl Treasures. I'm your host, Johnny G. John Galindo, coming to you live each and every Saturday, only here on Top Shelf Oldies. A little bit of a late start here for the October 21st, 2017 Vinyl Treasure Show. Glad you can join Johnny G on this beautiful day here in New York City. I like it this way, although maybe a little bit hot, but I think allergies are starting to affect me. I do. But to sit back for the next 2 hours, got some original vinyl 45s out of my collection. We opened up tonight's Vinyl Treasure Show, that tune that maybe sounded a little bit familiar to you, but that was a premier organist pianist from Philadelphia, PA. I'm sure you know his signature song was a national hit back in 1956, was called Honky Tonk Part 1 and Part 2. It had about 73 singles in all between 1952 and 1971 on Sid Nathan's King label. Mr. Bill Doggett. We just heard Mr. Bill Doggett with Blip Blop. It featured Floyd Candy Johnson on saxophone there. This record peaked at number 82 on Billboard, a big number 22. Those of you listening in Boston in June of 1958 on WCOP, kind of a top 20 tune there, but it was Bill Doggett on King, Blip Blop to open up tonight's Vinyl Treasure Show. Enough of my babbling here. We started off with the vocal portion as we go to Harlem, New York. Initially, this group recorded as the Sparks on Hull in 1957, according to Louis Silvani. Then in 1958, they changed their name to the Lollipops. For you collectors out there, first presses of this came out on the Universal International label. Then 6 months later, they came out on the Holland. I'm featuring it on Universal International. Let's go back to May of 58 for the Lollipops with their tune called Believe in Me.
So believe in me. I've never questioned your love. What I said to you, dear, is true. I have been so lonely, thinking of you only. Why did we have to part? If you will awaken, you won't be mistaken, for you have the key to my heart. Believe in me. I've tried so hard to make you understand. Though you doubted my love, dear, I've done all I can. I have been so lonely, thinking of you only. Why did we have to part? If you will awaken, you won't be mistaken, for you have the key to my heart. Believe in me. There are things I want you to know, dear. I'm not pretending when I say I love you so.
Those of you out there that used to listen to the Ronnie I Show, he used that as one of his theme songs for one of his shows. I don't know which, I don't recall which radio station he was on at the time, but he definitely used that record from May 1958. Those are the Lollipops. The Lollipops on Universal International. Believe in Me is the name of the tune, originally on Universal International. Later on, came out on Holland. I was lucky to win that one. A nice copy of that, by the way. Sometime in in 2000 or so, early 2000. 2000s on eBay, believe it or not. Yes, you can get some good buys. Yes, you can. You got to be careful, though, for the people that grade. Anyway, Johnny G here for a Saturday evening. We count down the music chronologically here. On Saturday evenings, it's 50s and early 60s. Next week will be my all 60s show. It's post-Beatles 1964 and later, so those of you that like the latter 60s, you can tune in next Saturday. We do it the last Saturday of every month. Let's continue with the 50s here. How about we stay in Harlem, New York for this female R&B singer. Unfortunate that she was crippled since birth, but that didn't stop her from becoming a successful R&B singer for Herman Lubinsky's Savoy record label starting back in 1951. She had R&B hits like Mercy, Mr. Percy, and Johnny Has Gone, which was a tribute song to the late Johnny Ace. Here is one she did from September 1952. I'm talking about Verret Adil. This is Verret Adil from September of 52 on Savoy Records. Her tune's called Them Their Eyes. Female R&B singer there by the name of Verret Adil. September 52 release on Savoy Records. Them Their Eyes is the name of the tune. Now, originally that probably came out on a 78. Don't know when Savoy Records went to 45s initially, but probably not back in 52. But what Herman Lubinsky did is he repressed a lot of those records like in whenever he switched, 1954 maybe, or 53, he pressed them up on 45, and that's a cool tune there. I found my first copy of that actually on a 78 back in 1976. There was a massive flea market that General Motors in Terrytown was having for in its humongous parking lot to commemorate the bicentennial year back in 1976. And the first place when I walked in, there was a guy on the corner. He had a box of 78s. They were all stacked up. They were all 15 cents a piece, and I bought them all except what I thought might have been pop records, but lots of group stuff. You know, the Solitaires, the Harp Tones, the Cadillacs, etc. And that was in there too on a 78. But that's Once on a 45. Johnny G featured it for you this evening. We move on here on the Vinyl Treasure Show. Got quite a few flip sides from last week's 50s and early 60s edition of the show, and here's the first one. We go to Sid Nathan's King label for this. I played the A-side by a group called The Checkers. Was their fifth release on the King label. A song called You Never Had It So Good, a great up-tempo tune for them. So let's give a listen to the B-side, which features David Bogan, I think is how you pronounce it, on lead. This one from October 53, The Checkers on King, with their tune called I Promise You.
I promise you I'll love you forever. I promise you I'll leave you never. When you're not near, oh yes, I'm always so lonely. You know, my dear, that I love you only. I promise you I will be faithful each day anew. It's you I'm thinking of. You are my life. Oh yes, you're my every dream come true. You know you're the only one for me. I promise you. I promise you I will be faithful each day anew. It's you I'm thinking of. You are my life. Oh yes, you're my every dream come true. You know you're the only one for me. I promise you.
Early sides here on the Vinyl Treasure Show, October 1953 release for The Checkers on King, their fifth of 10, a song entitled I Promise You. Cool tunes here for a Saturday evening. Let's continue. Up next, a pretty rare 45 by a group out of Brooklyn, New York. They recorded 4 sides for Murray Katz's Treat label, and they recorded this one at Bell Sound Studios with the Buddy Lucas Orchestra, their debut single. On their debut single, they were known as the Inspirators, a tune called If Loving You Is Wrong. But for some reason, the label decided to change their name with their second single. They called them the 5 Stars. Let's give a spin to their intended A-side of the 45. It features Cleo Perry on lead. This one from June of 55. The 5 Stars, a.k.a. the Inspirators, on Treat with their tune called Let's, or their rendition of the tune Let's Fall in Love.
Bring us more.
June 1955 release there. That's a rare 45 to have. I think easier on the 78 for sure, but those are the 5 stars. Cleo Perry on lead for that one. That is their second release on the Treat record label. Let's Fall in Love, the name of the tune. Great two-sided 45. So on my next 50 show, we're going to hear the nice ballad On the Flip Side. Their final release came out on High Weiss's Old Town label in 1958. A great tune called Starlight Tonight. Really a great record that is. Johnny G here for a Saturday evening as we continue here. What are the Yankees doing out there? Because I know a lot of the listeners of my show, they are focused on the New York Yankees with the Houston Astros. And no, there was no score. I don't get cable up here in the attic where I broadcast, so I hope they are winning. Somebody can tell me the score in the chat room. I will check it out for sure as we continue here. And on last week's Vinyl Treasure Show, I featured a group called The Feathers, and I played the A-side of their third and final release on the Showtime label. It was called Crashing the Party. It featured a bass lead, the bass of the group, called Ray Anderson. Now, the flip side is a duet with the regular lead for The Feathers. His name is Johnny Staton, along with his sister, Lenora Staton. This is a duet with group backing them up. This one from August of 55. These are The Feathers on Showtime, and their tune called Love Only You. From California there, those are The Feathers. The Feathers from August 1955. That's their third and final release on the Showtime record label. Actually, Johnny Staton and his sister, Lenora Staton there, doing lead. The Feathers with Love Only You. Now, The Feathers also backed up June Moy on the Showtime record label. I think it was Desert Winds, maybe, or Sands. I have the 45. Don't know if I've featured it here, though, but we will sometime in the future. And a rare one that they do on the Hollywood label that I am still looking for. And they also back up Jesse Belvin on Dear Heart and Betty My Darling. That one I do have. John G here spinning original vinyl 45s, and hopefully that those of you that are big Yankee fans have to be pretty disappointed now. They are losing, I think, 4-0 in the 6th inning, and that is not good. So they can come back. There's always a chance to come back, and if there's a team that can do it, they have, as they have done in the past. But we will continue with the music here. Let's continue with more B-sides from last week's Vinyl Treasure Show. Featured the second release for this group known as the Fascinators. They are out of Detroit, Michigan, and they recorded for Monroe Horn's Your Copy label. I featured that killer ballad called My Beauty, My Own. Featured Clarence Smith on lead for that one. The B-side is written by Donald Blackshear, and he is the baritone for the group, and he is also doing lead, and the music is by a group called the Bassliners, and really poor recording quality on this record, although it is mint. Anyway, let's give it a spin. March 1955, the Fascinators on Your Copy with their tune called Don't Give It Away.
Now I don't know, but they have said my good loving as well as your head, hanging around and pouting all day, and now you want to give it away. Oh, don't, baby, don't, baby, don't, baby, please don't give it away. Hey.
That group out of Detroit, whoops, It won't shut off. No, it won't. That group called the Fascinators. The Fascinators out of Detroit, Michigan. Something you would even hear on Devorah Brown's Fortune label. It sounds like it could be right off of the Fortune label too, even with the hiss and all. That's a mint copy too. March 1955, the Fascinators on your copy. Donald Blackshears on lead. He also wrote the tune. Don't Give It Away is the name of the tune. John G not giving away his 45s, but I am playing my music to share with you, the Top Shelf Oldies listener. Let's continue here. You all know this great group out of Philadelphia, PA. It was unfortunate that they only had 3 songs to make it to the national Billboard Hot 100 charts, and I'm sure you know those 3 songs. Songs like Long Lonely Nights, Teardrops, and Try the Impossibles. But as of today, many of their other releases are nationally known thanks to shows like mine and so many others through the years. Now, too bad that wasn't the case in the 1950s, but great sides they do on the Rainbow label, and this label that I'm featuring, Ivan Ballin's Gotham label, posted this one up on my Facebook wall. You can check it out, and it's their second for Gotham, written by Lee Andrews as a tribute to the Larks, In My Lonely Room, that came out on the Apollo record label. This one from July of 56. Give a listen to Lee Andrews and the Hearts on Gotham with their tune called Lonely Room.
In my,
You gotta start that off better.
in my lonely room, the memories fade like the smoke out of the blue. My darling, tell me, what will I do? I'm still crying in my lonely room. Do you remember all those things? The things we said before we had to part. And all you left is a broken heart. I'm still crying in my lonely room. The memories of you keep lingering in my heart. Said we were through right from the start, but I can't go on dreaming of you. There's nothing left to do. In my lonely room, I wonder who's holding you tonight. And if you're wondering if I'm alright, I'm still crying in my lonely room. The memories of you keep lingering in my heart. You said we were through right from the start, but I can't go on dreaming of you. There's nothing left to do. In my lonely room, the memories are too hard for me to bear. And when I look, I find no one there, and still crying in my lonely room.
Yes, Warren, I have to agree with you. That is a great record there by Lee Andrews and the Hearts. That is their second of 3 on Ivan Ballin's Gotham record label, July 1956. Lonely Room is the name of the tune. Now, it's even though it's their second for Gotham Records, that odd thing is that with this 45, it was not registered with ASCAP or BMI, registered with SESAC, CSAC, which stands for Society of European Songwriters and Composers. That is a pretty odd, because I don't know if I have any other records that are registered under that company. But I featured the Oddball Press, featured it on Gotham 319. This record was designated for Gotham 320, so something happened in the pressing plan at one point. They used 319 for some reason. Actually, Bluebird of Happiness, the record right before this, was 318, so I don't know what happened with that record, but that is the Oddball Press. Johnny G here playing Oddball 45s, although that one definitely is not, but cool tunes here for a Saturday evening. We are in the year 1956, back to the West Coast for this group that initially recorded as the Sabres on the Cal West label. They do a Christmas song, some of you may know, from late 1955 called Cool Cool Christmas. But here is their second overall release, which came out on Larry Mead's Vita label. Now, the group changed their name to the Chevelles, and it features a very young 17-year-old Billy Storm on lead. Let's go back to May of 1956, the Chevelles on Vita, and their tune called Valley of Love.
There is a valley of love.
Tell me why does my valley of love remind me of the stars that heaven above? Why does it remind me of you? I live still as warm as the summer skies, the still as bright as the gleam in your eyes. If they are pretty, baby, then I realize. Oh, well, I know our love is in. There is nothing left for me. Remember all the times we had, the things we used to see. If by chance a new romance appears and be the thing, I just chalk it on my wall as just another plea. Come on and tell me why. Valley of love, love is dropping dead, stars up above. Why in my valley of love? Well, remember the time I walked you home, the night we spent on the telephone, on how we couldn't say goodbye. A hug, a kiss, and then a sigh. Come on and tell me why. Pretty baby, tell me why. Oh, why my valley of love, with the stars up above, in my valley of love. Oh, my valley of love.
May 1956 release there. Whoops. That record there didn't shut off. I apologize for that, folks. May 1956, the Chevelles on Larry Mead's Vita label out of Pasadena, California. Valley of Love is the name of the tune. Of course, 17-year-old at the time, Billy Storm on lead. Now, Billy would then become the lead of the Valiants. I'm sure you remember their tune, This Is the Night of 45, that my aunt had, that I broke on her, by the way, on the Keen label. And then he would go on to have a very successful solo career, Mr. Billy Storm there. John G here for a Saturday evening. Hope you're digging on the tunes here on this Saturday evening, October 21st, 2017. Let's go to another flip side from last week. I featured the lone release by this Brooklyn, New York group known as the Kordells, a song called Here's a Heart for You. Came out on Jerry Winston's Onyx label. How about we give a spin to the intended A side of the 45, which is a ballad, which is co-written by the lead singer. His name is Robert Walker. This one here on Onyx, along with Sammy Lowe and his orchestra. We go back to October 1956 for the Kordells and their tune called I Started Out.
I started out looking for a girl to love, and now that I have found her, I love her so.
October 1956 release there. They're called the Kordells. Chordells. Jerry Winston's Onyx label. A cool label to collect if you can get more than the Velours 45. Some of the Velours records, Romeo, really hard to find. But anyway, those are the Kordells with I Started Out. Johnny G's starting out spinning 1950s and early 60s 45s. We do it every Saturday from 10 to midnight right here on Top Shelf Oldies. Let's continue here. Now, in the last few weeks, I've been featuring 45s on William Henry Miller's Acme label, another great label for you collectors to collect. If you can get them all, some really rare records on the Acme label. Well, here is another. I recently played this group from Long Island maybe about a month or two ago, which consisted of four brothers and a friend. Now, their debut single I played a few weeks ago, it was called On Your Radio, as they backed up 12-year-old Richard Lanham on that one. Well, this was the follow-up to that song, On Your Radio. It's the second of five for the Tempo Tones and what did I say here? For the Tempo Tones, yeah, February 1957, the Tempo Tones on Acme, and their tune called Ride Along.
Ride along, baby, gonna ride along. Don't leave, maybe gonna ride along. Ride till the break of dawn. Ride along, ride along. Sing my song, gonna ride along. Won't take long, gonna ride along. Ride till the break of dawn. The wind may blow, kids may fall, but I'll be on the move. You're the one now, so warm. I'ma love you, how so. Ride along, baby, gonna ride along. Going back home, gonna ride along. Ride till the break of dawn. let me have a Zulu.
Those are the Tempo Tones. Tempo Tones, February. Whoops. This button is sticking on your host, Johnny G. That's February 1957. Those are the Tempo Tones on the Acme record label. Their tune called Ride Along, the second of 5 they recorded on the Acme record label. Now, collecting was a lot of fun back in the early 1980s, and I used to go to all the flea markets and whatnot to get a record like that for 15 cents. Although I don't know what it sells for now. Maybe it sells for about $50 or so. But back then it was fun finding records like that for 15 cents. As John G babbles on, let's continue here. Back to the flip sides from last week. This time Joe Leibowitz's premium label out of Linden, New Jersey, posted this one up on my Facebook wall. I played the intended B-side of the record, the up-tempo side called A Love Like Yours, as done by the True Loves, a.k.a. initially known as the Love Notes, who were forced because of litigation from label owner Danny Robinson to change their name from the Love Tones to the True Loves. But here is the intended A-side. Features David Haywood on lead. It's from 1957, the True Loves on Premium, with their song called Never Look Behind.
Leave sadness behind you. Search for love and it will find you. Search for the best thing in life wherever you are. Lift up your head and strive, and a new love will arrive. Look for the good thing in life and never look behind. Remember the night you were so blue. Remember the night I said I love you. Now you are gone and we are apart. But darling, you're still in my heart. Leave sadness behind you. Search for love and it will find you. Search for the best thing in life and never look behind.
Those are the True Loves on the premium label out of Linden, New Jersey. Another cool label to collect because it's got great songs on it, and there's not that many that many premium 45s out there, very similar to the Onyx label and some of the others, but they're hard records to find, that's for sure. David Haywood on lead, 1957. Never Look Behind is the name of the tune. As we continue here on the Vinyl Treasure Show, earlier I played the tempo tones, cost me 15 cents. I wish that was the case for this next Acme 45 as we go back to William Henry Miller's Acme label. And a B-side from last week, I featured a group called the Love Letters from Long Island with the A-side, a song called Walking the Streets Alone, a great haunting ballad that they do. But this is the B-side. It's a cool up-tempo, features Eddie Magruder on lead. He also co-wrote the tune with label owner William Henry Miller. Again, I wish I paid 15 cents for this one, but that is not the case. April 57, the Love Letters on Acme with a B-side, a song called Ooh Wee Nellie.
I love Nellie bum dum bop diddy, yeah.
Oh, eh, oh, eh, oh, eh, oh, eh.
B-sides here on the Vinyl Treasure Show. That one there on William Henry Miller's Acme label. Those are the Love Letters, April 1957. Ooh Wee Nellie is the name of that one. Eddie Magruder on lead for that one. We continue here. We are in the year 1957, and on last week's Vinyl Treasure Show, I featured this group out of Brooklyn, New York. They were known as the Travelers. I played the side called Lenora, featured Frank Lopez on lead for that one. Now, prior to being a member of this group, Frank was a member of the Wrens, under the name Frank Concepcion, and he became a member in 1955 when the Wrens recorded this song called Betty Jean, but for some reason George Goldner had it scheduled for release, but for some reason it never came out, and maybe they heard something about it. He said, no, I'm not going to release it or whatever, but it was scheduled for a specific Rama number and release, but it never put it out, and no one ever heard it until I think some CD came out on the Wrens. But Frenchie probably remembered the song and recorded it with his group called the Travelers, and it's with Cliff Driver and his orchestra from August of '57. Let's give a listen to the Travelers on Atlas with their rendition of really the Wrens tune, Betty Jean.
win, Betty Jean. My mind is in a spin, Betty Jean. Don't let your darling heart deceive you. I need you, my own Betty Jean. You said you would think it over. Why rush and face so new? But to feel really love, you must love, dear. Please say I'm the lover for you.
My Betty Jean.
So let's stop wasting time, Betty Jean. Whoa, young and in our prime, Betty Jean. These things I'll tell you when I find you. If I find you again, Betty Jean. If I find you again, Betty Jean.
Those are the Travelers with Frank Lopez on lead there. August 1957, their rendition of the tune Betty Jean, actually sounding like the Wrens. That one for sure. Betty Jean on Thomas Robinson's Atlas record label. John G here for a Saturday evening spinning original vinyl 45s. Let's continue here and let's go to another group out of Brooklyn, New York, featuring lots and lots of groups out of Brooklyn. They were known as the Chessmen. Now, this is their debut single on Andy Leonetti's Safari label. Now, the A-side is an excellent ballad. It's called The Keeper of My Heart, and the label says it features Bobby. Now, Bobby, they don't give a last name, but Bobby's really Bobby Fuentes. And but I'm not playing that side, at least not this week. I will in 2 weeks when I'm back for the 50 show. I'm going to play the intended B-side of the 45. And there is a label error on this one for you collectors out there. It should read The Chessman, but they typed it Chessman. The Chessman. It should be The Chessman. Anyway, this is the intended B-side from 1958. It's on Safari Records. The name of the tune is called Why. No good.
Why
B-sides here on the Vinyl Treasure Show. 1958 there on the Safari label out of New York City. They're called the Chessmen, really. But again, on the label, they're called the Chessman. It's not the case. The Chessmen there with their tune called Why. Now, that is the B-side of the 45, and I think that is a different lead. That is not the same lead that is on the intended A-side. Bobby Fuentes is the lead singer on the intended A-side. And they also are the same group that recorded on the Mirasonic label. They do a great tune called I Live For You. Then they had one more release that did make it on the Billboard Hot 100, was only number 80. If you know a group called the Prelude 5, they do a great tune called a Starlight and Don't You Know Love on the flip. It's on the Pick label. They are the same group, the Chessmen, and Bobby Fuentes is on lead for that one. That is a great two-sided 45. Anyway, John G here for a Saturday evening. Let's continue. And yet another B-side from last week's show as we head to the Bronx, New York now. We are in the year 1958. I featured the debut single on the Apt label for Vince Castro. His tune called Bong Bong originally came out on the Doe label. Now, his background group of girls were known as the Tonettes, and they had a few releases on their own, like another Doe release called Oh What a Baby, and also came out on the ABC Paramount label. But again, they are backing Vince up on the B-side. It's a song he co-wrote from August of 58. We flip over Bong Bong for Vince Castro on Apt, and a tune called You're My Girl.
Although you have no loo, you're kinda cute. And when you walk and when you talk, you're rude. I'm so in love with you. Dee-ya-da-da-da-da-da-dum. You're my girl. Although you're not so smart, you've won my heart. Now night and day I always pray we'll never part. I'm so in love with you. Dee-ya-da-da-da-da-da-dum. You're my girl. The moment we kissed and I heard you sigh, I knew my dreams came true. Now Venus and Mars and all of the stars go when I squeeze you. Although we're in our teens and still wear jeans, won't we look nice when they throw rice? 'Cause then that means you're so in love with me. Dee-ya-da-da-da-da-da-dum. You're my girl. The moment we kissed and I heard you sigh, I knew my dreams came true. Now Venus and Mars and all of the stars go when I squeeze you. Although we're in our teens and still wear jeans, won't we look nice when they throw rice? 'Cause then that means you're so in love with me. Dee-ya-da-da-da-da-da-dum. You're my girl. You're my girl.
B-sides here on the Vinyl Treasure Show. 1958, August 58, released there for Vince Castro. The Tonettes backing him up on that one. The flip side of Bong Bong, a song called You're My Girl. Featured on the second label, Apt Records. Have it on a Doe promo. Yes, I do. John G here, spinning original vinyl 45. Let's continue. We do it chronologically. We are in the year of 1958. Now, Bopper Boy Warren, currently in our Top Shelf Oldies chat, he requested this next song for this group out of the Washington Heights section of New York City, and they made their debut on Danny and Bobby Robinson's Red Robin label back in 1954. But Warren requested this release on the Fury label, and this is the intended A-side co-written by the tenor of the group, Donald Razor, but it features Charles Sampson on lead, and this one charted here in New York City on WINS, was number 32 on WINS back in 1958 by request for Bopper Boy Warren. April 58 for the Velvets on Fury. Give a listen to their tune. It's called Dance, Honey, Dance.
Honey, dance like you never did before. Dance, honey, dance. Dance right across the floor. Do the bop, 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 do the stop, bop, bop, do the chicken pop, pop at the hop. Dance, honey, dance. Dance, honey, dance. I like the way you talk and do the walk. Wow, it's love and a rock and roll. Do the bop, 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 do the stop, bop, bop, do the chicken pop, pop at the hop. Dance, honey, dance. Dance, honey, dance. I like the way you do the chicken. I like the way you do the pop. I like the way you do the cha, cha, cha. I hope you never, never stop. Dance, honey, dance. I like you never did before. Dance, honey, dance. I dance right across the floor. I do the bop, 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 do the slop, bop, bop, do the chicken pop, pop at the hop. Dance, honey, dance. Dance, honey, dance. Hey! To the store and a rock and roll. Dance, honey, dance. Dance, honey, dance. Do the bop, 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 do the stop, bop, bop, do the chicken pop, pop at the hop. Dance, honey, dance. Dance, honey, dance. Dance, honey,
By request for Bopper Boy Warren, currently in our Top Shelf Oldie Show. Those are the Velvets, April 1958 on the Fury label. Their tune called Dance, Honey, Dance featured Charles Sampson on lead for that one. Now, Charles sang with a Carl Hogan with an earlier release that came out on the Red Robin label as Charles and Carl back in 1955. I have featured that one here on the Vinyl Treasure Show. Let's continue here, and I couldn't file this 45 back in the No Humidity Basement unless I featured the intended A-side. I played the B-side last week by this great Harlem, New York group, a song called I've Been Wondering. Now, the A-side was co-written by the lead singer. His name is Joe Greer. We go to Danny Robinson's Everlast label. We just heard Bobby Robinson's Fury label. This is his brother Danny Robinson's Everlast label. And give a listen to the charts from April 1958. The charts on Everlast with their tune called You're the Reason. Those are the great charts. The charts with Joe Greer on lead. That is the fourth of five on the Everlast record label, April 1958 release. The true title is You're the Reason, parentheses, I'm in Love. Cool tunes here for a Saturday evening. Hope you're digging on the tunes here. Let's continue here. And just notice that the last two 45s were released in the same month and year, April 1958. Well, how about one more from April 1958? And it's another request for Bopper Boy Warren. And as some of you may know, the version of this as done by Richard Barrett on the Metro label, but that is not the original. That is the cover of this version that Warren requested, written by the lead singer. His name is Lenny Young. So by request, for Bopper Boy Warren, I'm featuring it on the original label, J. Scott Records. I think the second label that it came out to was the original label. But anyway, let's go to April 1958 by request for Warren, Lenny Young and the Jaybirds on the J. Scott label, and the song is called Lovable.
Oh, so lovable, lovable.
By request for Bopper Boy Warren, wanted to hear Lenny. Whoops. This button is sticking, the on-off button it is for sure, for your host, Johnny G. Lenny Young and the Jaybirds, April 1958 on the J. Scott label, a tune called Lovable. Now, first released on J. Scott in April of 58, was picked up 1 month later on the original label, which was a subsidiary of Gene Autry's Challenge label. Johnny G here for a Saturday evening before I choke to death with this with these allergies that I have, so I have to apologize for that in advance. But let's continue. Up next, a group from Philadelphia, PA, never really had a national hit, at least this group didn't, because they had a total of 8 singles. Initially, they signed with the Red Top label, and they had their first release in late 1958. Then 4 masters were sold to the Cameo label, and the result were 2 singles. Now here is the A-side to their second and rarest of their Cameo, probably the rarest for the group, that is for sure, written by group member Sam Bell, but it features Garnet Mimms on lead. Garnet Mimms, this one from December of 1958, they're called The Gainers. The Gainers on Cameo with Garnet Mimms on lead with their tune called You Must Be an Angel.
You must be an angel, heaven's gift to the world. Just to see your smile makes my life worthwhile. I love you so much. You're as faithful as the stars that shine above us. You're as faithful as the sun that shines, as faithful as the years may come and they may go. I'm glad God made you mine. That's why I must have you all. No one in this whole wide world will do. I must have your charm. It's heavenly in your arms. I love you. Yes, I do. Lovebirds serenade you, flowers bloom at your touch. I need that thrill that dreams can't feel. I love you. I love you so much.
That's Garnet Mimms on lead there with The Gainers, the second of 2 on the Cameo label out of Philadelphia, PA, December 1958 release. You Must Be an Angel. A not easy record to find, especially in that condition. Was lucky to get that one. Actually, I upgraded my copy. Stereo Tom sold me that 45 there that he had, actually for a pretty decent price, that is for sure. But their other releases were on Mercury and Tally-Ho. Now, Garnet, of course, would sign with United Artists Records, and he, along with his group, The Enchanters, had their biggest hit in 1963. You may know the tune Cry Baby, a big number 4 for Garnet Mimms and The Enchanters. John G here for a Saturday evening as we continue here on the program, and we have 2 more 45s to go. In 1959 here, we move to Paul Winley's Winley record label. Not much known about this group. They are known as the Persuaders, and they would have this one release, a great 2-sided 45. Now, this is the intended B-side that I first heard on the Little Walter Show out of Boston, Massachusetts, January 59. These are the Persuaders on Winley with a B-side, a song called Tears.
La 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 la. Just for you, no
Johnny G gets caught here. Yes, I do. Those are the Persuaders, January 1959 on the Winley record label. Great two-sided 45. We just heard the intended B-side, a song entitled Tears. And first heard that on a Little Walters show. Now, I couldn't hear Little Walters here being in New York, because he was broadcasting from Boston. Used to exchange cassette tapes with another collector from Boston. He would provide me with some of the Little Walters shows, and I would provide him with some of the collector shows here in New York, like on FUV or WHBI, and we would go back and forth with the tapes, and met him on an AOL public chat room. They had like a doo-wop chat room back when they started back in 1993, I think, is when I had that AOL service. Anyway, Johnny G babbling on here for a Saturday evening. We have the last 45 out of 1959, and last week I paid tribute to the late Bunny Siegler. I played his second overall release on Grover Barber's B label out of Reading, Pennsylvania. I featured the A-side. It was called Square from Nowhere. Well, let's give a listen to the intended B-side of the 45, instrumentation provided by the Blue Rays Orchestra. As we go back to February 1959 on the B label, Bunny Siegler and the Kordells, and their tune called Laddie Daddy. That's the late Bunny Siegler and the Kordells, February 59. That's a B-side to his second overall release on the B label out of Reading, Pennsylvania. Laddie Daddy is the name of that tune. Johnny G's your 45 Daddy every Saturday from 10 to midnight right here on Top Shelf Oldies. Let's move into 1960 now for this group that formed in Brooklyn, New York back in 1958. Their debut 45 came out on the Amp 3 label, released in April of 58, but some mix-up happened when the information got transferred over the phone for the printing of the group's name, and the record came out incorrectly on those initial presses on Amp 3 because they came out as the Dandeliers instead of the Dandliers. So the record started taking off in April of 1958, and their manager at the time, his name was Danny Webb, he negotiated to get them out of their contract with Amp 3, and he signed them to Mercury Records, where they picked up that release on Amp 3, and it was their biggest hit, a national number 7 Billboard hit with under the correct spelling, the Danliers, and a song that you all know called One Summer Night. But then the group split up. It split up sometime in 1959, but Jimmy Weston, the lead of the group, wanted to continue singing. So Danny Webb, what he did was he had another group that he was managing. They were known as the Webtones. He combined three of the members of the Webtones with Jimmy Weston and formed this new Danliers group, and they recorded two on the Epic label back in 1960, and this is their first from March of 1960. These are the Danliers with Jimmy Weston on lead on the Epic label with their tune called Half a Block from an Angel. That's the first of two for the Danliers. Actually, a new Danliers group. Jimmy Weston, though, is the same lead. The Danliers there, March 1960 on the Epic label. The full title, parentheses, I Live. Then it's Half a Block from an Angel. If you want that record, you want it on the nice vinyl promo copy. Nice hard vinyl for that one. Those Epic promos are pretty nice in the 50s and early 60s. But I don't have their second single. I can't find it. It never turns up, the second single that the Danliers do on the Epic label. Anyway, JohnnyG's still looking for that one. We continue here for a Saturday evening. We are in the early 1960s, and let's go to another flip side from last week. Now, on the last show, I featured a 45. Came out on the Dynamite label out of California by Ray Frazier and the Moon Rays, and I played the B-side of the 45. It was called My Dream Lover, and we're going to give a listen to the intended A-side before it goes back down in the No Humidity basement. Now, his backup group, the Moon Rays, in reality, they were known as the Sharps, the same Sharps that included Carl White and Al Frazier, but this is the intended A-side for Ray Frazier and the Moon Rays from 1961. It's Dynamite Records. It's called Heaven's Not So Far.
Hold me in your arms and never let me go.
Heaven's not so far. Hold me in your arms tell me that your love belongs to only me. Take me in your arms and never let me go.
If you should say goodbye to me,
Oh, you leave me in the dark.
I love you so sincerely.
Say that we'll never, 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 never part. Tell me that your love belongs to only me. Take me in your arms and never let me go.
How I hate styrene 45s, I do. Unfortunate that sometimes, they get damaged with bad needle, etc. Although some parts of that, there is slight distortion, which kind of pisses me off. It does. Anyway, Ray Frazier and the Moonrays there, 1961. Not an easy record to find by any means. Heaven's Not So Far is the name of that one on the Dynamite record label. As we continue here on the Vinyl Treasure Show, and this next 45 is on the Comet label, distributed by Ember Records, and it's perplexing because I can't find any information about this artist. Now, both sides of this record are nice teen sound, and there is some background group. I can't identify who they are. Now, the writer of the song, his name is Stan Vincent, and sometimes I wonder if this is Stan Vincent, but I can't tell. Charlene couldn't either. But Stan Vincent does have a 45 on this Comet label where the Del Satins are backing him up, but I can't tell if it's him or not, so maybe you know if this is Stan Vincent or not. But this artist's name is Rod Prince, but if you know who this is, or if this is Stan Vincent, send me an email at vinyltreasures@aol.com. Let's give it a spin. It's from May 61. It's on the Comet label. I think this is the intended B-side. Rod Prince with a song called did I write it right? My Star All Alone. That's the name of it. My Star All Alone.
There's a star all alone who needs a guide, and this star is a girl who will be my bride. I will hold her very close to me, and in heaven I will stay, and I know that she will love me. Every night I will pray for her, and we'll go hand in hand to find her star, and we'll find heaven. It won't be far, 'cause I'll hold her very close to me, and in heaven I will stay, and I know that she will love
May 1961 release, a song entitled My Star Alone. Rod Prince is his name on the Comet record label. I thought that might be Stan Vincent. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I'm right. John G here for a Saturday evening. Let's continue. Here's another B-side from last week. I featured a group known as the Wilsones with their release on Sid Talmadge's Highland label. The song was called Let Me Help You, featured Bobby Sanders on lead. He also is doing lead on the flip side, so let's give it a spin before it goes back down in the No Humidity Basement. This one released in November of 61. They are called the Wilsones. The Wilsones on Highland, and this is the B-side. It's called Come On, Mama. B-sides here on the Vinyl Treasure Show. That is, they are the Wilsones. The Wilsones. Bobby Sanders on lead for that one, November 1961. Come On Mama is the name of the tune on the Highland label, Sid Talmadge's Highland Records out of Hollywood, California. Let's continue here. And earlier I played a 45 by a group called The Chessmen, came out on the Safari label. They were out of Brooklyn, New York. And last week I played another group known as The Chessmen. They were out of Washington, D.C. I featured the intended B-side of their lone release on the Pack label, was called Lola. This is the intended A-side of that 45, and it's a cover song. It was first recorded back in 1953 by Jane Froman. Jane Froman on the Capitol label, but so many groups and artists have recorded this song through the years. Let's give a listen to the version by The Chessmen. Features Alan Johnson oddly. This is from 61. The Chessmen on Pack with their rendition of the tune I Believe.
I believe for every drop of rain that falls, a flower grows. I believe for every dark night, a candle glows. Every time I hear a newborn baby
Sounds of 61 here on the Vinyl Treasure Show. Those are the Chessmen. The Chessmen there, whoops. Chessmen with their rendition of I Believe on the Pack label featuring Alan Johnson on lead for that one. We continue here. And on the last Vinyl Treasure Show, I paid tribute to the late Jimmy Beaumont, a lead singer of the Skyliners, but on a few of the Skyliners releases, it featured the female of the group. She would do lead. Of course, I'm talking about Janet Vogel, and I just love her voice. And here is one that she did lead on with the Skyliners. And I think at this time, October of 61, Jimmy already left the group for his solo career. And it's a 45 that's on the Cold Picks label. Let's go back to October of 61 for the Skyliners. This features Janet Vogel on lead. It's on Cold Picks Records. The tune is called Our Love Will Last. Those are the Skyliners. Janet Vogel on lead for that one. October 1961 release on the Cold Picks label, Our Love Will Last. I think it's the flip of, what is it? The flip was the A side. It was called Close Your Eyes. Yes, that was the intended A side. Anyway, I'm fortunate that Janet Vogel, she committed suicide February 12th, 1980. But she has a nice 45, double-sided 45 on the Gateway label, released in December of 63 as Janet Dean. You got to check that one out. It's called Another Night Alone. It's back with I'm So Glad, a great record that she does. Yes, it is. JohnnyGs here on a Saturday evening, spinning original vinyl 45s out of my collection from 12 to midnight right here on Top Shelf Oldies. Let's continue now, 1961. And don't know much about this group. It's a mixed group with guys and gals, and it's their lone release, released on Imperial Records, and this is the intended B-side of the 45 for this group called the Fidells. I know Bopper Boy loves this tune as much as I do. Let's go back to October 1961. These are the Fidells on Imperial, and their tune called What Is Love?
Some say love is a miracle. Say love is like gold. Some say
That's a great record there, October 1961. They're called the Fidells. The Fidells on Imperial. That's the B-side of the 45. Song entitled What Is Love? I bought that 45, remember vividly. I bought it from a dealer, Mike Demergian from Watertown, Massachusetts, and used to go to all the tri-state record shows. If not, I know he used to go to Arbutus. He used to go to Texas. He used to go to a bunch of shows in Connecticut and New York and New Jersey. And I found out recently that he passed away July 25th of 2017, and I haven't heard from Mike in a long time. Got a lot of records in my collection that he sold me privately over the phone. I would call him up when I met him. I met him at a county center a record show. One time I walked in there, and this new couple, his wife Carol, who unfortunately passed away, I think 3 years prior or 5 years prior, and they were set up, and they had all these records by label, and they were in their original sleeves, and I started pulling out piles and piles of 45s. So he comes up to me and he said, and I didn't know who they were, I had no clue, and they said to me, "Are you going to buy all these records?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Where are you from?" So I told him, I was from Westchester County, and he says, "Do you know, I got to ask you something. Do you know another collector in Westchester County by the name of John Galindo?" And I looked at him and I said to him, "Well, it's me." And he said to me, "You're kidding." So he went to his wife, Carol. He goes, "Carol, this is him. This is the guy. This is the mystery man," because he coined me the mystery man because I used to bid on his auctions in Discoveries magazine or Goldmine magazine, and I never would call his number. I would just send in a bid like $201.22, and he said he would write back to me and he would say, "You lost this record for a couple dollars. You should have called me up. I would have let you have it for like $2 more." And I never called up. I don't like those phone auctions for some reason. So he called me the mystery man from then. It was many years. I followed him quite a bit through a lot of the shows, and I have to admit I had first dibs on a lot of his 45s. I really did, and he sold me a lot of records through the years. And I know some of you old-time collectors, you may know of Mike and Carol, but they are no longer here, unfortunately. But I have great memories of them. Yes, I do. And that's one of the records I got from Mike. Anyway, as we move on here on the Vinyl Treasure Show, here is a girl group out of Chicago, Illinois. They began recording for the Pam label back in 1961. They had 2 releases, and then a couple of the masters were sold to OK Records. The result was this 45. Initially, they were known as the Starlets, but on this OK release, they were known as Donetta and the Starlets. It features Donetta Boone on lead, a.k.a. her name is Liz Walker. We go to June of 62 for Donetta and the Starlets on OK, and their tune called Impression.
Trying to tell me that my love has put me down, that he's been seeing another girl in town, but I know that he is only making an impression. I'm not going to worry about this new love that he's found, 'cause just like that, she won't be around, for I know that he is only making an impression. He's like a boy who found a brand new toy. It's new, so he thinks yes
June 1962 release there for Donetta and the Starlets. Donetta and the Starlets on the OK record label, their tune called Impression. Donetta Boone on lead. Actually, her name is Liz Walker. Now, if you were familiar with a song called I Sold My Heart to the Junkman by the Bluebells on the Newton label, then that is who the group is that did that song originally. It was not Patti LaBelle. It was really this group called the Starlets. But the Starlets weren't able to perform the record on American Bandstand, so they got Patti LaBelle to go on American Bandstand and perform it, and eventually those gals and Patti LaBelle really became the Bluebells. But their first record, it was really the Starlets. Johnny G's here for a Saturday evening as we continue here. A few more 45s to go as we are not quite in Vinyl Treasure overtime. So let's continue here. And this next singer started his career back in 1961 on the Gulf record label, but he had other releases that followed on RSVP, for instance. But he had one release. I think he had more than one release. He had two releases on the Shell label. His real name is Mont Curtis McNear, but he recorded as Curtis Knight. And here is the first of two he recorded on the Shell label. This one from February 62. Let's give it a spin. Curtis Knight on Shell. The song is called You're Gonna Be Sorry.
You're gonna be sorry. You're gonna be sorry. You're gonna be sorry. You're gonna be sorry.
Well, you laughed when you told me you were leaving, said you wouldn't miss me. Whoa. Well, I cried when you quit me and you left me, cause you wouldn't even kiss me goodbye. But one of these days, hey, one of these days, you're gonna be sorry. You're gonna be sorry. Tell me, how could you break all the vows, the promises you made, dear, to me? Tell me, how could you take all the love, yeah, the love that you gave, dear, to me? But one of these days, hey, one of these days, you're gonna be sorry. You're gonna be sorry. You're gonna be sorry for the day, for the way you made me cry. Oh, but you're gonna be sorry for the way that you left me feeling oh so blue. Well, you lied when you told me that you loved me. I thought it was a real thing. Whoa. Now I know by the way that you left me that I was just a plaything to you. But one of these days, yeah, one of these days, you're gonna be sorry. You're gonna be sorry. Yeah, you're gonna be sorry for making me cry. Yeah, you're gonna be sorry for telling me goodbye. Well, you're gonna be sorry. Yeah, you're gonna be sorry for telling me goodbye, for making me cry. Yeah, you're gonna be sorry.
February 62 release there for Curtis Knight. Curtis Knight's on the Shell label. You're Gonna Be Sorry is the name of the tune. Now, in the mid-1960s, he became associated with the Jimi Hendrix, and there were some obscure recordings that Jimmy played guitar on that Curtis Knight had in his possession, and he released those tapes when Jimmy became popular. There was actually a lawsuit with Jimmy's I think after he passed away, with his family, whatever, and I think they eventually, the Hendrix family did claim rights to those recordings. But anyway, that is that with that 45. John G here for a Saturday evening. Two more 45s to go before we sign off here on the Vinyl Treasure Show. I have one more tribute song to the late Jimmy Beaumont, lead of the Skyliners. Played a number of his tunes on last week's Vinyl Treasure Show, and I featured last week. I featured the side called "Tell Me," on this 45 on the Viscount record label. But we're going to flip it over, give a listen to the flip side, a tune written by Pittsburgh native Johnny Jack, who has some cool tunes in his own right. But this one bubbled under for the Skyliners, number 128 on the Billboard Hot One or Bubbling Under charts, but was number 17 on WHYN out of Springfield, Massachusetts. The late Jimmy Beaumont Onley. We go back to December 1962, the Skyliners on Viscount with their tune called Comes Love.
Fighting all ties that bind, yeah, comes love. Like a thief in the night. Come spring, come fall.
That's the late Jimmy Beaumont of this and the Skyliners there. The record on Viscount Records, December 1962, released the Skyliners there with a tune called Comes Love. Well, that's going to do it for Johnny G and the Vinyl Treasure Show. I want to thank you for joining Johnny G, listening to original vinyl 45s out of my collection. You want to get in touch with me, send me an email at vinyltreasures@aol.com. Been recording this show on the Ustream broadcaster. We'll get it up on my YouTube account. Also, you can go to vinyltreasures.net. You can stream or download the shows there at your leisure. And we're going to close the show this evening from 1963. You all know this group. Actually, the group this group originally from Staten Island. They had their biggest hit back in 1958 on the Apt label, a song called Little Star, which, by the way, was the #1 record on the charts the week that I was born, September 3rd of 1958. And the lead singer for the group had a number of solo releases in the mid-1960s. Had one on IPG, he had two on the Admiral label. This is the first of two on Admiral, and it's a song that he wrote. You know I'm talking about Vito Pacone. This one from 63. It's on Admiral. Vito Pacone with a song called I Like to Run. Well, that's going to be it because Johnny G's got to run. Hope you dug on all the tunes this evening. Please note that next Saturday evening I'll be doing my all 1960s show, 1964 and later. For those of you that like those 60s records, please tune in. You'll enjoy the show, all 45s. And please tune in tomorrow evening for my buddy Dave the Raven, his Relics and Rarities show, 9 to midnight, right here on Top Shelf Oldies, and all the other shows here on Top Shelf Oldies. Cool tunes, cool records, always here on Top Shelf Oldies. That's going to do it, folks. Charlene, thank you so much for all your help again, as you do every week. Want everybody to have a safe and happy week, and I'll see you here next Saturday evening from 10 to midnight right here on Top Shelf Oldies. Just want to say, everybody, so long.
When you snap your fingers, do you see how I run, 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 run? Hip, 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 hop. When you call my name, do you see how I run, 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 run? And I run just like a lion. You know I ain't a lion, but I like to run, girl. I like to run. I like to run and run. I like to run, girl. I like to run. When you go down the street, do you see how I follow? Even though the people say my head is hollow, I'll tread like a bloodhound who's lost and is just running around. But I like to run, girl. I like to run. I like to run and run. I like to run, girl. I like to run. I run in circles that never end. I don't want anyone else. You're my only friend. Oh Lord, I run and run just like a tiger. But I'm cool as a kitten when I'm standing beside